Just going to do another dramatic reading of one of my short stories. This one explains why you don't want to use a time machine when there is an emergency, especially if you're just starting to figure it out. Bad idea. Okay, so it's called MyxoGhast. MyxoGhast. And again, it's on the free blog. Close the pop up. I open source everything, I never monetize. So, our alien nemesis from the future. Here we go. Of course, you won't find this message in time. If you had, then this all would have been avoided. And if it were all avoided, then there would be nothing to write. In your future, we are working on a device. The structure of the device is relatively simple. A donut-shaped shell made of carbon nanotube forests, which are already grown readily in your time. By shocking that forest with superwaves in resonance with the fiber length and toroidal dimensions, you create a shear force against the weave of space-time. You literally rip yourself loose from causality. Time bubble. It's the worst way to travel back in time because there's no agreed upon theory for how to control when and where you re-enter our manifold. And time is like Narnia there. If you want to hop back to a minute earlier, you sit imprisoned in a time bubble for a century. So when we tested, we thought, let's just stick a loaf of bread inside and see if it reappears in the lab, moldy. That gurgling, laughing, snarling, pulsating blight of bread mold was the greatest tragedy in human history. It sat for 100 trillion years in time veil isolation, evolving. It reappeared light years away in our distant past. Now, it is heading back home. How could a little loaf form an advanced alien spore empire? Simple. Time loops. When you sit within that toroidal shell of carbon fiber, there is a membrane at the edge where space stops touching. That is the Unruh veil, and it seethes with quantum foam, flecks drifting away and siphoned back in a glistering dance of strange matter. When you exit the time bubble in our past, you are destined to repeat the events which led to your entry, somehow. And that commands the Unruh veil to pull forth whichever particles will change you in the necessary way for the time loop to complete. Every time someone makes a time bubble, it causes strain in the space-time manifold. It's the extension of the principle of least action. The same way magnetic fields want to take the easy street while spacing themselves out. So whichever timeline creates the time bubble with the least strain, the least improbability, then that timeline shall be. Unfortunately, all of the timelines which could create a time bubble are unfathomably unlikely in their own ways. So, probability should be expected to break whenever it is absolutely necessary. That is what happened. The moldy loaf didn't arrive back onto our manifold until a few million years in Earth's past. Hominid days, not dino days. It was many light years away at that point, but as we know now, there are numerous moons around any given star which are habitable for at least a little while. They had many places to spread when they arrived. Even its most advanced biostructures could only propel their spore gently. So they had not arrived until later in human evolution. And those earliest arrivals were the least evolved, tiniest, first wave. MyxoGhastria, the slime mold. Within only a few tens of thousands of years, they had infiltrated every soil bed, glomming each chunk of our DNA into their war machine. We have no idea how much of their present DNA was their own when they first arrived. When the second wave arrived, we just didn't understand. The slime molds seemed tailored to our weaknesses, ready, prescient, by blind chance. We suspected that some technologically advanced peoples had engineered it to target us. No. We sniffed our sandwich after it went to rot in the bag. And it hates us. Hate. Every signal it senses, as far as we can tell, says only hate. It wants none of us, only itself. After a few trillion years in isolation in a time bubble, it feels a shock confronted by other entities. It had been the entire cosmos for the entire evolution of its mind. Losing that sense of wholeness is torture. This MyxoGhast, by our tests, can only form perceptual concepts by cymatic resonance across its dendrites. It literally feels where the nodes and peaks are located within its own body to sense the world around it. Bat sonar, using the echo vibration inside a jellyfish, would be my elevator pitch. It has no idea that there even is a world outside. The vibration in itself is its only view of reality. And so, the only way it can comprehend a thing is by devouring and replacing that thing. MyxoGhast is the antithesis of nature. The second wave brought advanced biochem, structures, devices, all evolved from their macroscopic brain, synapse. Everything is tiny at first. Even an empire. Forensics traced the initial site of infection to the Eel River forests, likely a squirrel or other small mammal. The original host must have died quickly from the mismatched MyxoGhast chemistry. Yet, once that varmint died, MyxoGhast spread to a small group of crows. Anne Haley, the botanist conducting fieldwork there, was the first human who survived infection, and she necessarily became the prized host, silently infecting our team for months. Once the chemical signatures we exude became strong enough to feed back into the MyxoGhast dendrites, it triggered the next mutation. Emotional zombies. With the MyxoGhast mycelium gently wrapped around our crania, the slime mold was learning to predict and direct those behaviors which increased its own spread. At first, a few of our team began exhibiting erratic, paranoid, delusional, and manic symptoms. Then, as the mold dispersed to their family and friends, caretakers, it honed in on the best strategies for transmission: love and hate. With cycles of drama drawing people into physical proximity, and chaotic events pushing people into crowded settings or pushing them away toward new groups, new infection sites, a wave of madness gripped the country. It took months to identify the source, epidemiologically. Then only careful study of multiple cadavers in an international effort revealed that we were dealing with an alien brain mold. Those cadavers began waking up. Meanwhile, deep groundwater thermal circulations have been penetrated by MyxoGhast chemotrophy, and they extract uranium salts to fuel their biochemical weapons and creatures. The critters birth from wombs in the dirt, fully formed biological machines with tiny nuclear fission reactors inside them to keep them moving and make them impossible to attack. No one shoots at the polonium tigers. We tried firebombs, but the geothermal dendrites are too deep. And that brain underground is only learning more. It erects flutes now for pneumatic launch of vast spore clouds. The jungles are turning into crumbled piles of leaves, speckled in the mold. Animals choking and reanimating as demons. Some were hoping to flee into space. Synap signaled to us vast arrays of mathematical series using radio pulses from afar when it observed our desperate rocket's launch. The sky has teeth,